Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over some random Grand Theft Auto car and vehicle facts that you probably didn't know. This list is going to focus a little bit more on performance, as well as some of the more random features that you probably would not expect, but there's also some additional information in here as well. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, consider dropping a like and subscribing if you're new. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into these random GTA car and vehicle facts. To start us off, there are a handful of cars in GTA Online that have completely non-functional spoiler options. Lots of these cars also have active aero or active rear spoilers. It seems like something with the active spoiler messes with the car's downforce or handling profiles to make the spoiler options that they have absolutely obsolete. The worst part about this though is that even if you don't equip a spoiler, the active spoiler also provides no downforce on any of the vehicles. This plagues the Grotti Italia RSX as well as the Pegassi Torero XO. Both of which are cars that likely would have overtaken the top spot in their respective categories upon release if they had functional downforce. The RSX in the sports category would have almost certainly dominated the category for years, and the Torero XO would have pretty much certainly done wonders for the supercars category. But this fact does go a little bit deeper still with the Grotti X80 Proto, which was the most expensive car in GTA Online for a little while a few years back. Now this car's downforce issues are absolutely bizarre. The Grotti X80 Proto will give you downforce depending on what direction you're facing on the map. So for example, if you're facing northeast, you'll have downforce, whereas if you're facing southwest, you won't. It's incredibly weird. You're probably asking yourself, how the fuck is it even possible to screw up a car that badly? And I honestly wish I had an answer for you. My theory is that because of the car's strange active aero flaps that you'll see on the rear end of the vehicle, depending on the direction that you're going, only one is activating, whereas the other is deactivating, I guess. It's incredibly strange, and it's only an issue on this vehicle out of all the vehicles in GTA Online. So the X80 Proto is actually broken on a completely different level to most broken vehicles in GTA Online. Shout out to my friend Twingo for helping me film this, by the way. Now our next strange fact lies with two vehicles from the Los Santos Super Sport Series DLC, namely the overflawed Entity XXR. This car is strange because of a quote-unquote scaling issue. If you've ever seen this car, it looks relatively normal, unless you park another supercar next to it. When you do this, you might think that the car looks small, and that's because it is. When you actually get inside the vehicle as well, if you go into first person, you might notice the distinct lack of being able to see your character's legs, or not being able to see the dashboard of the XXR because your character's legs are in the dashboard. They are in the dashboard and the steering wheel, which is crazy. When I noticed this for the first time, I have never been able to forget about it since, and it has effectively ruined the entire vehicle for me, so you're welcome for that information. Now on the polar opposite end of the spectrum though, we have the overflawed Tyrant from the same DLC, which is the car sitting next to the Entity XXR right here. Same manufacturer, same DLC, two completely different ideas as far as scale goes. I guess they must have had a pretty big division on the designers of the cars, because the Tyrant is one of the largest and most oversized supercars in the entire game. It seems absolutely massive if you have the two sitting together, and it's pretty easy to see that there is clearly some sort of an issue with the XXR, because even the Tyrant being absolutely massive, the XXR still should have been more like the Tyrant, which is crazy. Also added with the same DLC was the Cheval Taipan, which has got to be one of the ugliest vehicles in all of GTA Online. So overall, I feel like things were not going that well with this DLC, and we're actually going to be talking about this DLC a little bit later. Next up, on some vehicles in GTA Online, Rockstar goes the extra mile to add cool features and nods to real-life inspirations for their vehicles. For example, on the Imponte Ruiner 2000, which is based on Kit from Knight Rider, if a player attempts to enter the vehicle when you have your preferences set to no one to enter the vehicle, it will actually shock any players who try to get into the vehicle, causing them to effectively fall to the ground and convulse, which is exactly the same as what happens when you get hit by the stun gun in GTA Online.
Why's my ass up?
That is so funny. So pretty cool fact there. Also shout out to my friend Bosch for helping me get this clip. Then there's also some special startups for certain vehicles like the Grotti Turismo R and the Pegassi Zentorno, as you'll hear in these next two clips. Next up, we have another pretty significant issue, and this plagues two entire DLCs that were added to GTA Online, and every single vehicle included with them. Now, what we're talking about here are advanced handling flags and engine resistance. These issues plagued every single vehicle from the Southern San Andreas Super Sport series and the After Hours DLC. These flags and engine resistance caused the vehicles to behave strangely compared to their counterparts added in previous and future DLCs from the point in which these two were added. Engine resistance is one that particularly bugs me, although it technically has been quote-unquote fixed by this point, but it's not fully removed from the game, and the cars that are affected by it are less noticeable now, thankfully, but you can definitely still notice it. Engine resistance essentially made cars shift gears way later than they ever should have. Which of course in turn caused the vehicles to have significantly worse performance compared to their non-engine resistance counterparts. This affected cars like the Dinka Jester Classic, the overflawed Entity XXR, and the Rapid Dominator GTX as just a few examples. It always bugged me, and these cars would all perform so badly compared to the other vehicles in the game and in their respective classes that I honestly just hated driving all of them, and I basically counted them out after purchasing them the first time. Here we come to advanced handling flags, which was more of an after hours thing. But these are present on many vehicles in GTA Online and even some DLCs outside of the two that I mentioned before. These are found on cars like the Declassi Vamos, the Pegassi Toros, the Imponte Arbiter GT, and many, many more. On cars like the Vamos or Arbiter GT, the advanced handling flags come in the form of instability at high speed, which causes both of these cars to be extremely sensitive close to top speed and can often lead to high-speed crashes due to overcorrections, which normally would just be regular corrections that you should be able to do, but on these two cars at high speed, it will certainly cause a crash. Then on the Pegassi Toros, advanced handling flags come in the form of being extremely sensitive to bumps on the road surface. This will cause the car to lose traction and often crash. With the advanced handling flags, at least it makes the cars feel different and a little bit more unique, but the engine resistance mechanic is just plainly stupid and should have never been even considered to be added to the game in the first place, at least in my opinion. Now, over the course of GTA Online's history, there have been several vehicles that have had speed glitches that allowed players to go significantly faster than what they should have been allowed to go. Now, currently there are about 5 or 6 land vehicles that can be significantly glitched, but some of them depend on the platform that you play on. For example, on the Legacy edition of GTA Online for PC, the Benefactor LM87 had a speed glitch that would allow players to go upwards of 200 miles per hour. It would work better if the vehicle was slightly damaged, but the most important factor was to do with your frames per second in game. The more you had, the faster the vehicle would go. However, there are also a few motorcycles that are glitched on every platform as far as I know, like the Western Power Surge, the Western Gargoyle, or the Western Reaver, all of which are able to speed glitch by simply doing a wheelie. Although on the Gargoyle, you will need to change the rear tire in order to achieve the speed glitch, but on the other two, you can just simply wheelie and you'll get there. These bikes can easily reach up to about 180 miles per hour with the glitch, which is very, very quick. But of course, you will need to be wheeling the entire time for that speed to be achieved. Another motorcycle that can be speed glitched is the relatively new Western police bike that was added with the last DLC. It works the same way with just a simple wheelie. Now there's also speed glitch with the Hydra, which can be achieved by switching in and out of VTOL mode repeatedly, and this can see the Hydra reach over 300 miles per hour. Now I honestly don't have gameplay of this is just a regular Hydra flying. I cannot manage to do this glitch. I don't know how people do it, I just can't seem to get the button combo correct. It might be easier on console, but let me know what you think of the Hydro speed glitch. Have you done it? Do you know anything about it? Let me know. Now, as many of us know, vehicles and water don't mix well in GTA Online or in real life generally. However, there are a couple of exceptions to this general rule. These are of course with the Toreador and the Stromberg, but if you find yourself driving either of them, there are some careful considerations to make before entering the water in either vehicle. If the Stromberg's front doors are open or off of the car, upon entering the water it will be instantaneously destroyed. However, the Toreador is a bit more strange. If the Toreador's rear doors are off the vehicle entirely while underwater, the vehicle is completely fine, but if the Toreador's front door is open or off the car, it will instantaneously be destroyed. Now, my theory is that some genius at Rockstar copied the code from the Stromberg over to the Toreador, and being that the Stromberg is only a two-door, only the Toreador's two front doors have this happen to them, and the rear doors, which are not coded probably, don't affect it. Very interesting. Now, another interesting thing to note with both of these vehicles is that neither of their windows will break no matter how many bullets you put into them. However, players inside can be shot out, which is odd. Another interesting fact is that semi-trucks can actually be driven around almost fully submerged underwater. They only need the exhausts sticking up above the surface. Something to note on this is that your character won't be able to breathe while underwater though. So your character will die technically, but the truck technically won't. However, you will not be able to get back into the vehicle because it's underwater, effectively making the truck destroyed. But interesting nonetheless. Did you know that Rockstar has actually gone back and added additional customization options to several different vehicles years after their initial release in GTA Online? It's actually true. With the Los Santos Tuners DLC, Rockstar added additional livery options to the Bravado Banshee and the Karen Kuruma. The following summer, with the Criminal Enterprises DLC, they took things a step further and added several liveries as well as additional customization options for the Pegassi Zentorno, Grotti Turismo R, Ubermacht Sentinel XS, Benefactor Schwarzer, Benefactor Sterling GT, and the Cheval Picador. New liveries were also added to the Lampadati Tropos Rally with the Agents of Sabotage DLC as well, back in December of last year. Pretty cool. I wish they'd do this for more cars, but at the same time I can't complain because at least they did it for these cars that I just mentioned. Now, over the course of GTA Online's history, Rockstar have implemented a pretty significant power creep over the years. If you're unfamiliar with that term, basically it means things slowly get faster or better as time goes on to incentivize you to always purchase the newer cars, which also happen to be more and more expensive as time goes on. Interesting. And these vehicles will generally be a little bit faster or stronger, which again incentivizes you to purchase them. However, there is one car in the sports category that managed to fly under the radar for literally years. And this car is the Benefactor Feltzer, which is a $145,000 sports car. Now, this thing has always had some very time attack racing derived customization that to me always seemed very overkill and kind of didn't fit with the vehicle. However, it would seem it actually does fit the car's performance pretty well because the Feltzer managed to hold onto a spot within the top 10 fastest sports cars until just a couple of years ago. Now, I think the reason for the Feltzer still performing well was mostly due to the car's handling abilities, especially with the customization added to the car. On twistier circuits, it would actually perform quite well for something that's only $145,000. Now, this is quite sad considering significantly faster vehicles like the Pfister Comet S2, which costs 9.7 times more than the Feltzer, or the Tundra Panther, which costs 14.9 times more than the Feltzer, are both slower around a track, generally. Pretty insane stat for the Feltzer to have held on to a top 10 placement in the sports category, also considering that it is the most densely packed racing category in all of GTA Online, having over 120 cars in the category. Pretty insane, truly. Now, I'm sure at one point or another you've probably tried to surf on top of a moving vehicle only to be disappointed after a few seconds because you'll inevitably fall off. However, this isn't the case for every type of vehicle. That actually only happens on regular small vehicles. If you were to get on the top of a flatbed truck, mule, pounder, or in the bed of a dump truck or scrap truck, you'll actually be able to stand up and surf on any of those vehicles just fine. In fact, on some of these vehicles, you can even take cover, and on top of it all, you can actually shoot from on the vehicle, and most of the time the drivers will keep going. However, sometimes this will cause your generous driver to get out and run at their nearest opportunity. But nonetheless, I think this is a really cool fact, and I think that a lot of people missed out on this. Now for our final fact, when it comes to top speed in GTA Online for land vehicles, things are very confusing and probably not at all what you would expect. Out of the top 10 fastest land vehicles in the game currently, there is literally not one vehicle that is in the supercars category. There are, however, 3 muscle cars, 5 sports cars, 2 sports classics, and 1 motorcycle that have higher top speeds than any supercar in GTA Online, HSW included. Now, if you also include glitched vehicles, there are technically 4 or more motorcycles that have higher top speeds, and this is especially confusing when it comes to production vehicles in real life. Supercars absolutely dominate top speed-wise, especially compared to sports cars and muscle cars. And for the guys that are about to comment about their dad's, friends, brothers, dogs, moms, boyfriends, modified Dodge Neon that goes really fast, yes, I know all about modified vehicles and how they can be faster than supercars and how it actually makes sense, bro. You just think that for the premium prices that supercars in GTA Online cost, that you'd get some top speed out of them too. However, I will say, most of the top supercars will beat nearly everything else in the entire game around a track if they could race the other categories. So there is that to be considered, but I still think that some of the supercars should at least be within the top 10 fastest cars in the game. Top speed wise, I think not having any is quite ridiculous. So there you have it. Those are 10 random GTA car facts you probably didn't know. Let me know what you thought of my list in the comment section down below. Do you have any interesting facts about vehicles in GTA Online that you think I should know, and that maybe should go in a part 2 to this video if I eventually want to make one? Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, dislike if you didn't, consider subscribing if you guys are new, and with that being said, I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.